We are
And
rolling.
Dee, are you a passenger or you're driving?
I hope she's a passenger and not driving, or she's parked somewhere. She's not saying. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And thank you, Frances Moore, for moderating today's session. Let me do an intro of Frances. She's got an MBA and an HRM, Human Resource Management degree. She's a mother of 4 and grandmother of 6, full-time employment recruiter. And she owns and operates 2 businesses. One is MOOR Career Consulting and Staffing, helping others with resumes, cover letters, and interviewing techniques. And she's got Spencer's Closet, which is a nonprofit that collects donations for immediate relief to fire and disaster victims and their pets. Frances currently holds an associate degree in human services, bachelor's in human resources, master's in human resources, and 2 human resources management certificates, right? Certifications in the bachelor and master's programs. Currently, Frances is pursuing a doctorate degree in business administration to be completed October 2023. Wow. Well, welcome, Frances, and thank you for moderating our session today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
Yay. Let me just admit DJ in. And do we want to do intros again? I think that might be a good idea.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll kick it off. My name is Amy Lee, and I am the author of the Snow Trilogy. And I really want to thank you for being here tonight to support the book study sessions. It's been going really great, I think, and I hope we can continue all the way till the end, which I think is going to be mid-June. But I came to the United States in 1980 when I was 5 years old, and I am a survivor of the Vietnam War, as well as a congenital heart defect warrior, and currently living in Oklahoma, and authoring is my full-time job now. So, and that's me. Stacy, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Stacy Monty, and I am from Oklahoma, lived here pretty much all my life, and I write and edit for a living.
She's a great editor, guys. She edited my last 2 books. Dee?
Well, I am not the driver. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm not the driver. I am the passenger, and I'll be home really soon, so I will be out of this car. But I'm a physical therapist and finishing up my first book and under Quill, Hawk Publishing, and I'm just learning and enjoying it. So.
And she's already working on her second book, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, I love it.
Awesome.
How about Jay? Why don't you go next?
Okay, I'm Jay Davis. I'm living in Roseville, California. I used to live in Oklahoma during the 1970s. I'm 75. I was there. I was in freshman for class in high school in Carver campus on May Avenue, right across from the stockyards.
I still haven't been there.
Okay. Well, it was pretty interesting odor.
Oh. Okay, maybe I won't go there. Well, welcome.
I don't know if it's there anymore, but okay. Now I'm author of a play called Chad Joe. I'm one of the 4 authors from that. That was staged in 20, actually this year, 2011, and as of October, and by the Clovis Theater Company. And I'm also did the also QVTC. We did a CD called For a Child is Born to Us about the infancy of Christ.
Mm.
And my current book is called Excelsior Rising. It's an alternate history novel.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And you mentioned the screenplay for Jack Joe. Cha means father in Vietnamese. And Father Joe was a pivotal, an important figure in the life of the Vietnamese refugees. He was a priest that served the refugees at a refugee camp and helped us to, many of us, to get resettled in the United States. And actually, Father Joe makes an appearance in Snow in Seattle. Not a physical appearance, but he is mentioned. And also in Snow's Kitchen, I think. So anyways, welcome, Jay.
I knew him myself, so his favorite sent when you go to confession at the end of it, he would say, "Keep up the good work."
That's pretty cool. John, do you want to go next? John Thompson? Okay. I've got two John
He's
Thompson.
on, yeah, he's muted on one. I think he came on for the audio on one of them.
Okay. Well, we'll go to DJ next then.
Hi, I'm DJ from Kingfisher, Oklahoma, and I love reading and writing memoir and nonfiction. So I'm very thrilled to be a part of the group and I'm really enjoying the experience.
Thank you, DJ. It's great to have you again. Thank you.
Thanks.
And take it over, Francis, all you.
All right. Well, today we're going to go over chapter 9 through 12. And I have to say, I had to go back and read the chapters again this morning, just to kind of refresh my memory. But I did not want to stop after chapter 12. I wanted to keep on going. So I'm holding it in until tonight because I gotta finish this. So I'm super excited to have everyone here. Thank you again, Amy, for allowing me to host this for you. So on chapter 1, this is a time where Snow is back with the family. She like pops back in and there's a lot of things going on, but some of the questions, well, we'll just start with, oh, there's John. Hi, John.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name's John Thompson. I'm a retired teacher. I live in Central Park, and our neighborhood was basically saved by immigrants, especially Vietnamese immigrants. And it's embarrassing I don't know more about the stories in Snow in Vietnam. I would have liked it. I mean, it's sort of hard to talk about some of those really difficult things and learn about it as much as. So this has been wonderful.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, where we're starting?
I'm
What
sorry,
was
Jay.
that?
Where are we starting?
We're starting on chapter 9.
Chapter 9. Okay, 53.
I love it. He's got his book out.
I got the my we call it the tablet one.
Oh, tablet.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that?
Kimball.
Kindle.
Kindle. Yeah. There you go. Well, awesome. All right. So one of the first questions, which I'm going to go with some of Amy's questions actually, because hers are better than mine. So one of the first questions is, twice Snow runs off without saying goodbye to her family to leave Vietnam. So in chapter 9, she comes back and she's with them for a while up until chapter 12, and then she disappears again. So for someone who loves her family so much, why do you think she didn't make an effort to say goodbye the second time? Anyone?
That's a hard one, right? Because it's kind of like you love them so much that you want to spare that farewell, because then you might change your mind and not leave because they'll, convince you to stay. And so maybe it's a little bit easier to do that. I know in the first situation when she left, she didn't really have a choice, right? Because her husband was telling her, we got to pack up, we got to go, we got to make this, we got to leave. But if she really wanted to, I think she could have, forced the issue and said, I don't care, I'm going to say goodbye to my family or tell them what's going on and rather not disappear in the middle of the night. But the fact that she did that twice, I don't know. I'm curious to know what you all think, but I think maybe it's just because she doesn't want to say goodbye. It's too hard.
I was thinking that it was because it was so early in the morning, and she really, if I remember correctly, she didn't even know about it until the night before. Is that right? Or was my timeline off?
I think with the Mooncake to Freedom one, she had a little bit of warning because
Okay.
it was like, okay, on this date and this time, this is when you need to be prepared and ready to go. But it's also a situation where she could be putting her family in jeopardy, because if they did know, things could slip, right? And then neighbors will talk and then things will get derailed quickly. So.
Well, I thought it was interesting that she didn't tell her family goodbye, and in this instance, knowing for a little bit that she was going to be leaving, for fear of, it being discovered by one of the nosy neighbors, and turning them in. However, when she was on her trek to leave, she immediately jumps in and jeopardizes the whole thing. Forgets about the limp.
Oh.
And, forgets that she's supposed to be married to this guy that's helping her. But, it's kind of like Snow picks and chooses her battles.
Mm-hmm.
And when she should be quiet and just go with it, she doesn't. Something pops up and she jumps in.
That's a good point. Especially when you get to the chapter where the village is burning, right? And she's trying to protect that grandma.
Right.
I know DJ had a question or a comment. Do you want to say something?
Yes. Well, from a young adult literature standpoint on that question, briefly, you've got to get the parents out of the picture as soon as possible, because you need the protagonist to be able to be the one to solve the problems, not the parents, not the family, not the support system. And it makes the books a lot more interesting that way.
That's a true writer's perspective, isn't it? Yeah, because that's when you start rooting for your protagonist and understanding that she's not as meek or helpless as you think she is. Good point. Y'all got a drink? Because I got a drink.
I had a drink.
All
In
right.
fact, I have a little bar set up next to me. So.
All right, look at Dee. She just got out. She went straight from the car to the Budweiser. I love it.
Yeah, that's not a
Way
bad
to
idea.
go.
I should get myself a beer.
Yes.
I've been washing the car.
I think that's why Jay and DJ do not have their cameras on, because who knows what they're drinking.
Not drinking anything.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. So after the war ended, the false economy that the Americans created collapsed, and many people traded in the black market. What other methods do you think people exercised to survive during that time? And I want to add to that question too. How was it that they were also able to afford cigarettes? How did they get them? Was that on the black market, or go ahead, answer that one. I'm curious.
Well, I'll answer the cigarettes question. Heavy smokers in Vietnam. There's always an endless supply of cigarettes, and they're cheap, right? Until, of course, there weren't any cigarettes, and then they became expensive. And of course, if there were American, like Marlboros, everybody wanted Marlboros. Those were expensive. But then we had the 555 cigarettes, which I actually have smoked before. I actually really liked the 555 cigarettes back when I did smoke. And those were easy to come by. And I think with the black market and the US fleeing and abandoning everything, I mean, they spent millions of money flying crates and truckloads of stuff, that the American soldiers needed or wanted. Everything from radios to condoms. I mean, like you name it, they just flew them in. And then when they left, everything was abandoned, and so you can go to the ports, you can go to the embassy, you can go to any of the stations and just find so much stuff. But anyways, yeah, that's my answer to the cigarette question.
Was tobacco grown in Vietnam or no?
I don't know. I would imagine so, because it's such a rich country in terms of soil and coffee, tea, like so many things grew, especially in the mountainous regions in central Vietnam. And then you've got the Mekong Delta, which is also rich with fishing and other forestry as well. And so I wouldn't be surprised. And of course, there was marijuana, lots and lots of marijuana. So yeah.
I heard that snicker.
That would be from Jay.
All right.
So about that.
So does anyone else have any ideas of how they were able to get goods other than the black market? Anybody have any thoughts about that?
I mean, they were still farming, they're still stealing. People pilfered and people told on each other, to get good, to be in good graces with others. And so, and then because the US, the Westerners had left, what you had left was the bougie or bourgeois society. And so, you had beautiful dresses or Western clothes or what have you that were already in your possession. And so you had to quickly get rid of that or hide it and sell it later when you needed the money. But I'm trying to think what other, I mean, if that was my situation, I'd probably send my child off to indentured servitude. I'm like, here's Preston, he'll cook and clean for you. And I don't know, what would you guys do? I'd look at my dog and see if, I mean, I hate to say this, but people ate what they had to eat or what they could find. And if it was a dog, a cat, if it was moving, they would eat it because they were starving. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, in desperate situations, you become creative. You figure out ways to survive, and you literally go into survival mode. So
yeah,
that I understand.
When we had the whole mass exodus of all of the boat people leaving Vietnam and trying to find their way to a safe harbor, there were also cannibalism that was exercised. You heard that in the news back then, people eating people.
Balatong 53.
Yeah. So it's, you do what you got to do. And if you read any of the other diaspora stories written by Asian Americans or other authors, you'll understand that when you get to that desperation point, anything is up for consideration, right?
Yeah. So there was also in chapter 9, there was mention of bodies being dumped behind the hospital in like these mass graves. So tell us about how that transpired. I mean, before all of this, I know the country had changed hands numerous times, but before all of that, later on, there's a mention of a gravesite. So I'm wondering, when did they go from gravesites to mass bodies, and then did they go back to gravesites, or what was that culture like as far as honoring those that were dead?
So the mention of all those bodies in the hospital, being piled on and decomposing and whatever. So, you know, you got to keep in mind that there were so many deaths every day, and not enough resources, not enough medical supplies or staff or whatever. And at some point, you know, I imagine they got overwhelmed and they just couldn't keep up, right? This was actually a true story. We lived across from the hospital, and my cousin Tree, before he quit school, he would walk by and would just be curious to see all these bodies just being dumped, dumped and left there. Some of them, of course, were still alive, you know, but they just couldn't keep up. And there was no, it's just like COVID, right? There's not enough beds, there's not enough medicine, and people were just dying where they were at. And there was a war to fight, so nobody's going to take the time to like bury these people properly, nor did they even know who these people are. You know, some of them didn't have IDs. And so it got to the point where my cousin was just like, it smelled so bad, but at the same time, he was just so drawn by it, by the morbidity of it all. He was just so curious, you know, that he would just sit there and watch as police and ambulance or whatever would just dump these bodies there, and Vietnamese and Americans. It didn't matter. So, but in terms of graves, especially if you're further out in the rural areas, there are graves, you know, for the hamlets and villages and stuff like that. And I'm not sure exactly how you would bury someone if they were Christian versus Buddhist, or, you know, if they followed Confucianism or whatever. But having been into Vietnam several times, it's interesting to see the grave sites because they're all above ground, and some of them are pretty darn elaborate. And it's just, it seems like it's miles and miles of just tombstones or like crypts, you know, that are raised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting, it's beautiful yet sad at the same time, you know, to see.
Does that elaboracy like represent that family for being wealthy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and even if you're not wealthy, people will pull in resources, and, you know, you borrow money from your neighbors, or you know, there's a pot sometimes that people will save money for, to do those kinds of things.
Well, being our certain, you know, our current situation with COVID, you know, I think we can all kind of relate to not necessarily the mass graves, but, you know, seeing the refrigerated trucks outside, you know, acting as morgues. You know, I think that kind of hits home to help us understand it better.
Yeah, yeah.
Hold that, I got a call here.
Okay.
Let's see.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm gonna have to do some BBQ duty.
All right, so I want to see if anybody else had any questions for chapter 9.
Which was that morphine?
Yes, thank you for saying it, because I wasn't sure how to pronounce it.
Well, apparently we didn't either. We didn't know it was pronounced morphine.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, got it, got right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. My cousin Tree actually found morphine at the hospital, which was crazy. And what good luck, right? Because we were able to sell that for a few $1 million, which really wasn't that much money when you translate it into US dollars, but that was enough to live on, you know, because the exchange rate is just so different.
And he was so clever in his negotiations. I loved it.
Yeah, my cousin. I don't know if that's officially how it went down, but I know he's a clever one, and he was able to get a lot of money for that morphine.
Yeah. Now, also in chapter 9, somebody got their ears pierced as part of a celebration.
Yeah,
Ding, ding, ding.
that's very common.
So tell us a little bit more about that, because I was thinking, because things were being so rationed, and you had neighbors, working for the government and telling on everyone. How did that come about? I mean, was it a home piercing? Did it raise any alarms because there was something new on this child?
It's very, very common in the Vietnamese culture to pierce the baby's ear before they turn 1 year old. And keep in mind too that for us, when you're born, you've already spent 9 months in the womb, and you're considered already 1 year old when you're born. It's kind of a weird thing because when you turn 2 years old, for example, in some ways they consider you as a 3 year old already. Some people do. So anyways, but having your ears pierced, it's very common in the Asian culture to do so. And so it wasn't something that raised an eyebrow to see that happen. And it was still early on in the takeover with the North Vietnamese government that, there were still resources, and there were still money, and there was still a stipend that came in. And so it didn't get really, really bad until a little bit later, but yeah.
Okay. Did Snow ever learn how to sew properly?
Book 2.
Book 2, okay.
Book 2.
All right, and my other question that I had written down was what happened to Sam's ring, because I noticed that she brought up that she had her wedding band, but she didn't say anything about his ring. So I don't know if that comes later, and if it does, I don't want to do a spoiler alert.
Okay, so it does come later.
Okay, thank you.
Sam's ring does appear, and the inspiration behind that ring is a ring that I actually wear every single day on my right hand. It's a ring that my mom has had forever, and I'll show it to you if you can see it. There it is. Yeah, it's 18 karat gold. It's got an emerald in the center, and it's got a cascade of diamonds. She has worn this ring forever. And I've always remembered being little and saying, "Can I have that ring when you die one day?" Kids don't. We have no filter.
No, we don't.
No shame. And she's like, "Of course, I'll pass this ring on down to you when I pass." And but I've always asked her, like, where did that ring come from? Who gave it to you? How much is it worth? How much did it, and she would never tell me. She would always skirt around it. And it was always been a mystery, which in my book, I romanticized that this ring and kind of created a story around it for my own selfish reasons, right? But who knows how she got this ring?
Well, I kind of want to label it my precious.
Precious.
Since it has gone such a journey.
Yes.
To get to you.
And actually, the other day I was washing dishes and it flew off my finger, and I turned on the garbage disposal. I was freaking out so bad. I was just like, "Oh my God." But luckily, it was heavy enough that it didn't go down the drain. Otherwise I would just be mortified.
Yeah. I know what to get you for Christmas now.
A fatter finger.
No, a ring holder. Take it off before you do the dishes.
Yeah, I have one of those, but I don't use it.
All right. So if nobody else has any questions for chapter 9, anybody?
Nope. Okay.
No?
No?
All right. So we're moving on to chapter 10, which is Ragamuffin Sheep. See that one I can now. So oh gosh, all the chapters are blurring up to me right now. So in chapter 10, this is when I don't remember his name, but is this the one where he professes his love to her, and or am I going back one step further back? Anyway, oh no. So her relative wants her to take Tree with her to the US. And my original question was, did she? But then I later read on that she didn't, because she had to leave so abruptly, and he couldn't afford to, have Tree go with her. So how do you think, well, I don't know what the next chapter reads, but how do you think how do you think she felt about not bringing him with her?
I'm gonna let the panel answer that one.
You guys are so quiet today.
I know, what's going on? Must be the sunshine.
I'll send some your way.
Well, I don't think Tree didn't want to go, but did he even know at that point what was being discussed? So I think probably her brother was, when he found out she was gone, he was probably very upset, because he, I'm sure, felt like they had an agreement and that's what she was going to do, and then she wasn't able to do that. So, but I think Tree would have been fine with it at that point.
Yeah, I can imagine what that conversation would be like when she returns and brother Seven is like, you didn't take my son. But, and again, with the Mooncake to Freedom chapter, this ticket to freedom was provided to her by High, right? By the brother-in-law. And he had made this whole elaborate plan for her. So it's not like she was just kind of going with the flow. And Tree was the last thing on her mind, right? It was really getting the hell out of there and finding medical attention for Dolly. But I was, as I was writing this, I was like, man, can I change the story somehow to like have Pie go with her, because I really wanted Pie to go with Snow and kind of be the protector, and because he was so good up to that point. But knowing my mom's true story, he didn't go, and so I was like, that's too sad.
I know. I think I was secretly thinking in the background, oh, yes, he's gonna go. And I could just, as soon as I heard, read the initial conversation about her taking him with her, I was already envisioning in my head how he would be in that family unit in America. So it was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna protect her and, be like the big brother and, do all the stuff that they can't do. And then it was like, oh, you didn't get to go.
Yeah, that would have been a totally different story for sure.
Yeah.
Had that taken place, it's definitely an alternate ending. Because if they went and they survived the open seas, then what happens when they get to the Galang refugee camp and Omo comes into the picture. So, and I won't do any spoiler alerts in case you haven't reached that chapter yet. But
so did your mom ever talk to you about that scenario?
About High, you mean, or about
Tree going? Or was that fiction, or was that
partially fiction, partially real? I mean, I didn't find out until after the fact, actually, and I didn't find that really out until my dad came back into the picture. So my dad was the one who kind of told me about their love story, which is kind of weird, right? Telling you about your brother's love story to your wife.
Ooh, I gotta go, unfortunately.
Okay, Jay. Well, thank you for coming.
Hi, Jay.
You can always watch the
Bye.
replay later. Bye.
Hi.
So another question that I came up with was, how did they get through the checkpoints with contraband? Because it seemed like it seemed like they searched them, right?
Well, did they have contraband?
Well, yeah, because when she went to go collect her money,
Mm-hmm.
he gave her some more stuff to sell. And then she had to go back through the checkpoint to get back home, right?
Well, are you talking about the checkpoint with High or which
Oh, I
check?
don't know. I'm all confused.
Because the first time that they went through the checkpoint with, she was on the motorcycle with High,
Right.
and the war had just, Saigon had just collapsed. They raided the embassy, and she gave her loot to Gung, the toy store owner,
Right.
saying, take this for me. And when they went through the checkpoint to get back home, all they had in their possession was a watermelon. And she had on her, I think it was her watch and her jade bracelet, and
Right.
had some cash, right? Some money, which some of it was hidden in High's sock, which they didn't find. But other than that, I don't think they really had anything to go through and get searched for.
Okay.
She did get her, I think she tried to take off her jade bracelet, if I recall correctly, but she couldn't get it off. And if you've ever seen a Vietnamese person wear a jade bracelet, it's solid jade. And unless you squeeze your fingers, your hand like this, and put a lot of soap or some kind of lubrication, you can't get that sucker off. It is on there. And so she ended up giving her watch away instead of her jade bracelet.
Yeah, I think I bought one once and realized I couldn't get it off. And once I got it off, I never wore it again.
It's a pain in the butt, it's pretty, but then it starts clinking around, and then when you're writing, it's just, yeah. But
well, I thought, well, I'm sorry. I thought when she went back to collect her money, they were negotiating, what was it, bear aspirin that he wanted her to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know it's not like morphine, but isn't that considered contraband? Because I think she would have had to go through another checkpoint to get back to the house. Right?
No, you're totally right.
Okay.
You're totally right. And I didn't even write that scene, right? But she would have had to go through at least one checkpoint. So I don't know, what use your imagination. How do you think she got through?
Well, she was very well endowed, so.
Yes, that she was.
Would have been my guess.
That certainly helps, I think.
Anybody else have any suggestions? Any thoughts? Can't believe how quiet everyone is.
I know.
Maybe bribery too. I don't know if that would have been enough to get them through, but.
Yeah, maybe she gave up that jade bracelet after all. Or maybe she gave him some, I don't know, something else.
Well, I don't think it was the jade bracelet, because then she mentions it later that she was going to offer that up for something else.
Okay.
So.
Must be wisdom.
I love that we can be so open here.
I know.
Okay, so let's see. All right, so now we're moving on to chapter 11. And in chapter 11 is Mooncake to Freedom. So we've kind of already talked about this a little bit before. And I think I already asked my first question about the servants. So this is when her father, everybody has the celebration. And he toasts and acknowledges every family member over some warm beer and a feast of food. So, so here's the first question. Snow's father gives praise to each of the family during the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival dinner. This is not typical as parents in Vietnam They do not say their love for their children or that they're proud of them. Why do you think he spoke so freely about his love and pride for his children and grandchildren? This is to the panel.
Yeah, it's because it's very out of character for a male, for one, to express his feelings, but for just an Asian parent in general in Vietnam, they, even to this day, as I get more and more involved with the mental health awareness situation for our Vietnamese Americans, parents just don't say they love you. They don't show expression or emotions. I think part of it is because they don't want their child to grow up feeling spoiled and special, you know, because everybody is supposed to be treated equally and they have to work hard and fight hard, and there's no special treatment, even though technically the youngest child usually does get special treatment. But you know, their way of showing you love is to be hard on you and to whip your butt into shape like the military. So yeah, I'm curious to know what people think about that scene.
So I see Deborah hands up. Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, this is just a guess on my part, but perhaps that was a foreshadowing that he was seeing things change. Things are getting worse, and he may not have many more opportunities to express these to his children. I don't know. That's just a guess.
I love that. I will say that as the writer, I wrote that scene because I wanted the readers to have a sense of who this man was and to kind of fall in love with him, right? Know who he is as a gentle person, so that when I kill him off in the future chapters, that there's an emotional connection there. Which, okay, I just totally spoiled that, but
yeah, spoiler alert.
Oh my God, who invited me to the party?
Right.
But yes, I wrote that for a reason, and the foreshadowing is a great perspective.
I thought too it might have had something to do with the fact that Snow had been gone and now she's back, and so so you know, to take advantage of that, like Deborah said, that might not get another opportunity. So, and that scene definitely, I think, accomplished what you wanted it to, because we get to know him and care about him as a person, as their father, and so you did a really good job with that.
Thanks, Stacy. Yeah, because he's not really talked about or mentioned much, right? And so that's his one moment to shine. So yeah.
I think the other reason too is he lost Snow once. And I think during that time that she was gone and it was such an unknown of what her fate was, I think that when he had everybody together and it was a celebration, that was his time to show how much he cared for each and every one of them, you know, and especially Snow, because even she was doubting how he was gonna, what he was gonna say about her. Yeah. So for him to give her like the highest praise, basically, I think that was a reflection of him thinking or wondering what had happened to her when she was gone.
Yeah, and there's a lot that happens after that too, right?
No more spoiler alerts.
I was gonna say, who's read the whole book? Because maybe I should. Okay, so Francis has not read the whole book. All right.
Nope. Taking my sweet time.
All right. Then I'll have to not say what I was gonna say.
Thank you.
Like whenever I was at that place, I was kind of thinking, as time goes on, like you guys already mentioned, you don't know when, any of you might die, and if you have nothing to really give as a gift, that would be a really memorable gift you could give people, you know, especially if it was not done very often, to go out of bounds, color outside the lines, and do that in front of each other is a huge gift to give people when maybe if you give something, you looked around, what can I give? You know, and that's a very tangible memory that maybe was more of a gift than if you could have gotten, you know, money or a bracelet or something, you know, something very memorable.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's a good insight.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what is the drinking age in Vietnam? And why was this young one drinking and getting drunk? I'm sorry, as a parent, that just popped into my head.
Is there a legal drinking age in Vietnam? I don't know, because for as long as I can remember, alcohol was never an issue in our culture. It was always a very open thing. It was never a taboo thing. You know, I still remember being a little girl and asking my mom if I can have a sip of her beer to taste it, or her wine or whatever she was drinking. And it was just nonchalantly, sure, you know, here, have a sip. And I do that with my son too, because that's the way I was raised. And it's like, it takes the whole, you know, curiosity out of alcohol, if you let them have a sip. And yeah, I don't know what the legal age is, but I've always seen kids drink alcohol. Not to the point where they're belligerent and drunk or anything, but yeah. And nyawing, nyaw is a pastime of ours. You know, it's a social thing where we get together, we eat and we drink all day long, and we play cards, and that's our social pastime kind of thing. It's very, very common. And so it's like tapas. We always have little pieces of or little dishes of food, and usually the men would start first. You know, they'd sit around the table, and the women would just keep throwing little plates of food in front of them, and they would drink and eat all day long and shoot the breeze. And usually the women would have their own table, and then we would just keep an eye on the guys, you know, and replenish as needed. But it's what they do. And as a matter of fact, when we visited Vietnam, my husband, he's like, what do they do all day long? Like, how can they afford to just sit around and yow all day long? And it's because most of the businesses are ran at the house. Usually the front of the house is the storefront. And then the rest of the home is their home, their living quarters. And so that's how they run the business. You wait until a customer pops up, and then you take care of them. And then the rest of the time you just sit there and eat and drink and shoot the breeze.
Oh, to have that life now would be, I mean, you know, being able to shoot the breeze all day and run your business out your front door, that would be so cool right now.
Yeah, and that's what people do. You know, you don't go to work necessarily. Not most of them don't. Most of them operate their business right out of their home. One of the coolest things about Vietnam that I experienced was, because people sold things out of their home, you can, like, say Mr. Seven down the street, you know, makes the best yogurt. And if you're hankering for yogurt, you'll send your child down the street, go to his house, collect the yogurt. Sometimes you just like, hey, you know, every Sunday we want you to deliver, you know, 5 jars of yogurt, whatever, and they'll deliver to you. You eat it, you leave the container or the jar out your front doorstep, and he'll come and collect it later on. Same thing with like pho, or, you know, any noodle soups or meals. You can order it from Sister 8 down the street, because you know she makes the best. And then when you're done eating, you'll just leave the chopsticks, the plates, everything out on your front doorstep, and then she or one of her children will come and collect it. And that's how business was ran, and still is run, you know, in Vietnam.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so if you ask for a take home or to go bags, they'll look at you kind of funny. They're like, we don't have that. It's like, you just, you know, to go, like, here it is, and then you leave it there and they'll come and collect it. So it's a new concept.
Wow. All right. So here's a question from Amy for this chapter. If your current economy collapsed today and everything you own was seized by the government, your land, your business, your home, your possessions, your family members, what would you do?
It's not an easy one to answer.
Mm-mm. Well, I'll go. What I would do, I think as a parent, my biggest thing, possessions can go, I don't care about that stuff. My biggest thing is being around my children and my grandchildren. So I would fight to be near them, you know, be with them if possible. Anything I could do to protect them.
How would you do that if they were scattered? Right? Because
yeah, I'd have to be a little conniving. And, you know, find, you know, law is something that I love. So I've always been like kind of a little mini detective. So I would always figure out ways to find them and then figure out ways to get to them. So even if I wouldn't be able, you know, even being that I have 4 kids, they would probably all be scattered in different, you know, locations. Thank God they all live in Washington. So hopefully their scattering won't be so bad if that ever happens, but heaven forbid. But I think for me, it would be a way of sneaking in, seeing them, letting them know everything's okay, and then I'm there for them, and then moving on to the next one. And continuing to do that while trying to figure out a way to get us all together. So possessions, I could care less about. It's a matter of being there for my children.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandkids.
I'd start canning now. No. You know, if that happened to me, I think I would.
You know, that is such a.
Go ahead, Dee. Did you say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, well, I did. And I basically, it's like that's something we should all ponder. I mean, you think of all the things, this is how I could raise money today. You could think of different things you might be able to do, but most of those doors wouldn't be open. I mean, you wouldn't have real currency. I mean, you'd have to find a need somewhere and see if you could fill that need for other people. I mean, I think you'd end up selling what all you could sell. The first thing I would do, I'd want to get to the rest of my family, of course, but how do you get there? I mean, you only have so much gas in your car, and I mean, you know, I don't know. We'd do what we had to do. Look at what you have and see who might want it. Try to get a good price. I mean, what else you could do?
Yeah. Did you all watch the movie Waterworld?
What was it?
Waterworld.
Years and years ago.
Right? It's an old movie with Kevin Costner, and you know, I mean, this is the point where like this guy has got gills. I mean, he's adapted to his new environment because it's all water, and they have a new currency. And I think fresh water was the currency, or drinkable water was the currency. But yeah, I mean, you adapt, and you know, you're just gonna have to deal with the fact that losses will be had. But I would probably band together with people as much as I can, you know, survival in numbers maybe, and pool our resources together and hopefully get through it. But that's a scary thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we have 3 minutes left, and we might have another question, but I do also want to show you a picture, as I promised that I usually do. So let me do that really quick, and then we can go to the last question if we have one. Okay, so here's what I wanted to share. Okay, so the picture on the far upper left with my mom drinking a Saigon, it's either Saigon beer or a triple free beer, some kind of beer, Vietnamese beer. That was after like less than half of that can, she was already drunk. And they're sitting around brother Seven, my uncle Seven's, outdoor table, and they're shooting the breeze. And this is the second trip back to Vietnam with my mom. It's the first trip for Joe and Preston. The lady to her, to the left there, she is one of my nieces, or sorry, one of my cousins, and she is Sister Six's daughter. And Sister Six actually has a couple of daughters. And so if you go on to the far right, in this picture here, in the upper right corner, that's another daughter. So I took those two women and combined them to make the character Tam, which is Snow's niece. So FYI there. But as you can see, they're both alive, well, and doing great. Although the one on the right has had a very, very hard life, and I chose her as the central point of character, I guess, to develop Tam and her backstory. The picture in the middle, that's my husband on the right, Joe, with a neighbor in the middle, and then brother Seven, Uncle Seven to me, and that's them. And you can see in the very front, they're meowing, of course, but there's a roll of toilet paper there. And I laugh every single time because that's what they use for tissue in Vietnam. So the first time they broke out the roll of toilet paper for napkins, I was just like, what is that? But I thought that was funny. That's what they use. And then far right, of course, in the bottom is one of the chickens that my family owns. And I thought that was the picture that I referred to when I was writing for Mong Yo, chicken dirty butt. And then the one on the far lower left, that's my mom and Sister Six. And my mom's the affectionate one. You can see she's got her arm draped around Sister Six. And Sister Six is just sitting there like, whatever. take my picture. And that's just her. So anyways, I wanted to share that. That was in December of 2013, I want to say, when we did our second trip back to Vietnam.
Awesome.
And that's it. Any final questions, final thoughts?
Well, Amy, can you hear me?
Yes, Kathy.
I'm going to try and hope to be with y'all next week, but I'm busy packing. I quit in my packing to be on tonight, but the reason I'm leaving to go to Alabama is because my daughter is retiring from the military. Oh. And so I have to be there by Saturday. I catch my flight on Thursday and be there Saturday for the event.
Oh.
But I'll try and be with y'all next week, but you all stay reading your books. And Francis, don't give it away. I know it's hard.
Not at all.
I'm doing the same thing, but I'm trying to not bite my tongue. So
that's why you were so quiet.
It's
I know.
hard.
I need to be quiet because I gave some spoiler alerts tonight.
Yes, I heard.
You're in luck, Amy, because this will make me forget all about. See, I already forgot. I don't even know what the spoiler alert was.
Oh my god! Awesome. Well,
that'll
Kathy,
get
have
you
a
in trouble
safe
every
flight.
time.
Have a safe flight. We hope that we see you next Sunday. But if we don't, it'll be recorded. And Jenny Muscatel and Dan Muscatel, you remember from last week, Jenny and
yes.
Dan, they are going to moderate for us next Sunday. So that'll be fun as well. And then the following week after that will be Mother's Day, of course. So we will skip that Sunday. But
yes.
If I don't see you, then have a great Mother's Day and time with your family. And thank you.
And thank you so much. I appreciate that. You all be safe and God bless y'all.
You too.
Bye, Kathy.
Great night.
Bye-bye, Francis.
Francis, thank you so much for moderating tonight. Carolyn, thanks for joining. You caught the very trail end of it, I think. And DJ, thank you so much as well, all of you. I hope you'll come back next Sunday and spend an hour with us.
Oh, I will. And I hope I have this book read by, oh, it's going to be done tonight. Never mind.
Okay.
Awesome.
Enough
I'm going to
said.
jump onto another panel, and I will see you all later.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Amy.
Bye. Have a great
Bye.
night.
Bye-bye.